2. Downfield, caught at the 5, and Tank Dell reaches into the
End zone! Touchdown! Keyshawn Carter.
Houston and Louisiana will each travel just over 200 miles to Shreveport, Louisiana, where the two will meet on the gridiron of Independence Stadium for the Independence Bowl. Hello and welcome inside the American Studios alongside ESPN college football analyst Rini Angolia, Taylor McCarg. I'm Morgan Uber. Two teams that picked number one here in the preseason poll. Two teams that played for a championship game a year ago with Louisiana in the Sun Belt. Houston in the American have to be feeling some sense of disappointment. Taylor, who is it that needs this win more?
It's got to be Houston. Moving to a new conference and for all of the ups and downs of this season, I think a bowl win would really be something that they could rally around. This season was defined by close wins and close losses, and it started earlier in the year, but Rini, I think they really could use a bowl win to cap the season off.
I agree with you. I mean, you talked about the start, right? They picked to win the American. They were favorites in all those games in the beginning, and they start the season 3-3, right? But they bounced back. They had a good second half of the year, better second half of the season. But I agree, Taylor. It's a team that's obviously transitioned to the Big 12, and they need some positive mojo, some momentum. So they really need this bowl win.
With Houston, they had the fifth-year senior quarterback Clayton Tune coming back, and a look at how these two teams got here with Houston, really just a lot of experience coming back for a team that faced Cincinnati in the American Conference Championship game last December. The Cougs, though, fallen short of their preseason favorite expectations. Head coach Dana Holgerson's squad finished fifth in the American with an overall record of 7-5. The Cougs played in 6 different one-score games this season, going 3 for 3 in those matchups. And a look at their opponent, the reigning Sun Belt Conference champs, Louisiana, also picked first in their preseason poll, had to win its final game of the regular season just to finish 6-6 on the year, and this is the 5th straight bowl game for the Raging Cajuns and the first under the first-year head coach Michael Desormeaux. For Houston, they have the edge in offense, averaging 37 points per game, 463 total yards of offense, nearly 100 more total yards of offense per game. Total defense, though, the Cougs giving up 429 yards. Scoring margin, these two teams almost just about even, and it's the first time here that they're meeting since 2006. Really, for Houston, these offensive categories pretty much what we expected for them this season, but not quite the record overall, Taylor, that we expected. A 7-5 year after what they had coming back. What was it that went wrong for Houston?
Well, there's a few things. The two things that I would point out specifically, there was defensive production that they lost. 3 guys drafted to the NFL that they didn't do a great job of backfilling. Derek Parrish got hurt against Rice earlier in the year. He was the heartbeat of that defense. And a 4th and 20 play in overtime against Texas Tech. I thought that was the most important play of the entire season. They give that up to Texas Tech. Tech goes on to win that game. They turn around and lose to Kansas. And then it's all season having to come back and win games close against Rice, close, a miracle win against Memphis, close against Temple. They just could not get out ahead of teams and sustain a lead. And it really had to do with the defense. You saw the production on the offensive side. In this game, I think they're going to have to run away from and outscore ULL, but the defense all season just felt like they could not get out ahead of people.
Defensive backs in football have to have the shortest memories, right? Because they're always getting thrown at. They give up big plays, but they got to bounce back, right? You got to flush it. You got to forget about the last play. You got to do it as a team as well, too. And it just seems like under Dana Holgerson, sometimes his teams, they lose that concentration. They're unable to shake off a bad loss, a loss where they were favored to win. And you have to do that. Good teams do that. And it surprised me this year because they were such a mature team. I think they averaged 22 years of age on that roster, players coming back. So it surprised me early on that they weren't able to shake off some of those tough losses. But they have a chance to go out on a big note, a good note, and propel themselves for next season.
How challenging is it going to be, Rini, for them to get up and be motivated for this game?
So that's another thing too. You have to be motivated, and that's always an issue in these bowl games, right? The motivation factor. You're playing a Sun Belt team in the Independence Bowl. You got to be mature. You got to understand it's an important game. It's national television. You got to if you're a senior and it's the last time you're playing, you want to go out on a winning note and win a bowl game. But also you want to get the program in that right trajectory to start next season. So you have to be mature enough to say, okay, let's get excited about this and go win it. And I've had Houston teams in the past that weren't excited for their bowl game. So that's a challenge for Dana Holgorsen.
Well, I think it's encouraging for Houston fans that Tank Dell's playing in this game.
Yes.
And he very easily could have said, hey, this is an NFL guy. There's a few NFL guys on this team. Clayton Tune at quarterback as well for Houston. You're going to see him playing on Sundays. But for Tank Dell to say, hey, look, I'm going to play in this game one more time, even in a bowl game that there's not huge implications here for Houston, I thought that was really encouraging and is a sign that this Houston team does care about this game.
And the fact that he's playing, that Tank Dell's playing, to me, that's a sign of leadership, right? Where other guys are going to see that and say, okay, this is a big deal. Let's step up. And Taylor touched on it. I think offensively, I don't think there's going to be any issues. Defense has been the issue for Houston, and they're going to have to tackle really well in this ball game.
Alongside Tank Dell, they're going to have quarterback Clayton Tune also playing in this one. And these two have been arguably one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in all of college football. The production numbers show for it. Taylor, what is it when you watch the connection between the two of them as a former quarterback? What do you see?
Dana Holgorsen has coached a lot of incredible quarterbacks in his career. When we talked to him earlier in the season, he said, Clayton Tune is the best athlete I've ever coached at the quarterback spot. This guy was a sub-11 100-meter dash guy in high school. The quarterback run game, look at all of the stats that we see here in total yards between Clayton Tune, Tank Dell. He's an elite passer of the football, but I thought late in the year when Houston got banged up in the running back room, they leaned on Clayton Tune, and that was leadership. You want to talk about leadership from the quarterback spot. He was doing anything it took to will his team to victory, and even in losses, they lost 77-63 to SMU, but it wasn't for lack of effort on the offensive side.
Well, I don't think Clayton Tune, to your point, gets enough credit for being as good an athlete as he is. But, and Tank Dell, what can you say about him? Not the biggest guy, but he is tough. He will go over the middle. He will take hits. He gets up, he lines up, and he gets right back after it. And it's just a great connection between those two. And Taylor can tell you as a quarterback, when you have that receiver, the timing, you just know when you want to do back shoulder, Clayton Tune knows Tank Dell's going to be there. He can trust him to come out of his breaks. It's a great combination.
And it's been encouraging for Houston fans that Matthew Golden, the four-star receiver, the freshman, he stepped up as the year went along as well. And that's who they're going to look to next season and in the future. That's another NFL guy. He stays healthy and continues the production that we saw out of the back half of the season. Matthew Golden will be another guy just like Tank Dell that we'll see on Sundays.
You mentioned the future, but this is a Houston team that won't have a future here in the American as they're headed to the Big 12 Conference. But when you think of the success that they had here in this conference last year under Dana Holgorsen, making it to the American Championship game, giving Cincinnati, the number 4 team in the country, such a great run. They won in 2015. Taylor, you grew up playing at Rice, literally your last season, 2013, their first year in the American. What will you remember most about Houston's time in this conference?
Well, they had the conference championship early on when they were in the American Conference, but then it felt like they got stuck in second gear sort of as time went along, and they were capped at sort of that 8-9 wins, and they couldn't get past that hurdle. I think that's going to be the challenge, certainly, as they move to a new conference. And it also felt like the city of Houston never really rallied around this conference. There were times where it'd be a primetime game and crowd really wasn't there, and maybe it's because this was a former Southwest Conference team that maybe that changes now that they're playing teams that they played through the 70s and 80s. But I felt like it was a program that was right there on the cusp of really being great in the American. But the last few years especially, I think they underperformed some.
Look at that, a conference record of 50-28, just able to really sustain success year after year. Aside from 2019, they had winning seasons, a conference championship, and their bowl appearances, 9 different bowl appearances, going 3-5. But Rini, when you take a look at Houston, what do you believe the lasting mark is that they'll have on this conference?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Houston, and Taylor kind of touched on it, always set up, right, when the season started, always had a lot of talent, thought they would have won 1 or 2 more conference championships on the way out. But they get a fresh start. They're going to a new conference. A lot of talent. Daniel Holgorsen can recruit. His coaches can recruit. You're in Houston, fertile recruiting ground. So it's kind of a fresh start for them, as a program. And so I think they would want nothing better than to get a win their last time playing as an American Athletic Conference team.
Circling back to this bowl game here as they'll face Louisiana in the Independence Bowl. Rini, what does this game come down to?
I think, and we talked about it earlier as well, I think emotion, wanting to be there, excited for this game. I think if Houston does that, I think they win this game.
I sent one line to you guys off air about this, and it was get the ball to Tank Dell.
Yeah.
And look, this is as dynamic a receiver as you'll see. He's going to be an early round draft pick in the NFL. There's nobody on the other side for ULL that's going to be able to cover him. You're going to see a lot of bracketing, a lot of double teams for Tank Dell, and that should open up opportunities for Matthew Golden as well. But the skill guys for Houston should have big days. I think this is a game that even if this turns into a shootout, I like U of H to win.
Yeah, and defensively, Houston's probably going to give up some plays, but you got to limit those plays. You know, it probably is going to be high scoring, but come up, tackle well, and just, hey, if you give up a big play, flush it, get back in there and make some stops.
The biggest storyline in bowl season is opt-outs, but really the biggest storyline of this game is the opt-in for Nathaniel Dell and also Clayton Tune playing in this game. I think the fact that they chose to come back and play one more game together really says something. I think Houston's hungry for the win, and they come out on top. Taylor, who's your pick?
I have Houston. I think they're the more talented team, certainly top down compared to ULL, who also first-year head coach on the other side. I think there's just too much talent, even in a year when they had all the close losses. They should win this game.
Rennie, who you got?
I agree, Houston. Too much talent, as Taylor just said.
There you go. Well, we all have the Cougars here in this matchup, and you can see them take on Louisiana here in their final game wearing an American patch here for the Houston Cougars. That one Friday, December 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN in the Independence Bowl.